to welcome everyone to a special Friday night open space meeting. It's very special indeed. We're gathering here, and let's start with roll call down there at the other end of the table.
Gary Nielsen here.
Bev Lipman here.
Carter Ward.
Nona Cheriello.
And Betsy Morgenthaler. We're missing Terry Lee, though I expect him at some point here, but we do have a quorum. And so let's proceed with oral communications. Are there any oral communications? Hearing none from my cohort here. I would like to just announce that there have been some finance committee meetings recently of which you're probably aware, and the town is experiencing severe financial pressure, such that everything is on the table, including issues that concern the Open Space Committee, that being the Open Space Fund and the 2% user utility tax. It is extremely likely that we will, well, it is about 100% sure that the town will declare a fiscal emergency in order to call for an election in March, at which time the 2% user utility tax would be on the ballot, perhaps as two separate measures. One measure to vote to arrest the 2% tax that would flow to the Open Space Fund, and the second measure corresponding that it would increase by 2% what is an existing 5.5% UU tax to the general fund, and it would increase by 2, making it 7.5. An issue that is may come before us. We may be asked if we support such a consideration. And there are other issues that have been folded into this conversation, just to make you aware.
Jim?
Yes?
Jim? Can you come for a minute?
Excuse me, can you mute yourselves out there? We've been joined by somebody. You're all welcome, but Ms. Norris, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. To continue, some of the issues that have been raised, I think maybe because our website that describes the open space parcels has some corresponding information about trails. So it talks about open spaces writ large, including Hawthorns. It also talks about trails. And I think that might account for why people are talking about trail maintenance and folding that into open space maintenance and considering that the Open Space Fund pay for more than what is actually open space. So we have an opportunity to do some extra education. I want to make you aware of these things because they could be coming down rather quickly, including at the Wednesday night meeting on coming up this October 23rd. So any people who would like to, any of my fellow committee members who would like to attend that meeting to speak up, it might be helpful to have more than one rep from this committee.
That's the question. Has the Finance Committee weighed in on those proposals you just described?
They are going to weigh in between now and the meeting. So they're going to weigh in with a summary and potential recommendations. That part was, they're for sure going to put out the buffet of choices. The problem is the buffet of choices is very small. And the only immediate income that they can get is from the UU tax. That would fill the coffers to the tune of around $400,000, but the needs are really 1.5. So, it's a bigger problem than this will address, but this is a partway measure. Excuse me, there's a member in the audience that could mute herself. That would be great. Linda's iPad. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, if there are no other oral communications, I don't see any hands raised out there in the audience. We can proceed with our open space. Oh, no, we can proceed with the approval of the minutes. Are you calling for any amendments to the minutes as you received in your agenda package? And
I would move approval.
moving approval, a second?
Second here.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it overwhelmingly passes. And that brings us to the main menu item tonight, which is the proposed letter. And Nona is going to put this on the screen so that our audience members at home can see the proposed letter from the Open Space Committee to our Town Council, Planning Commission, and the Ad Hoc Committee, which will be meeting on Monday night. The members who are at home, maybe Nona can slowly scroll through the letter. Shall we read it? I will read it aloud.
I think you're gonna have to.
Yeah. So it's to the three bodies, as just mentioned. Portola Valley's founding in 1964 and Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District's Mid-Pens founding in 1972 grew from the desire to protect surrounding foothills and open space. This shared commitment to land stewardship and public access has been vital to the town and to the region, and it will grow with the addition of Hawthorns to Mid-Pen. Hawthorns also brings a new dimension: historic structures, including 17,000 square feet, earmarked for renovation. And there's a footnote to that, and at the bottom, it's described as a house is 9,100 square feet, a garage of 2,200 square feet, a cottage of 1,300 square feet, and a lower barn of 4,500 square feet. The Portola Valley, I think I'm going to read the letter without the footnotes to make it a little bit smoother, but.
Can I suggest that we do edits paragraph by paragraph, or would it be better to read through the whole thing first?
I think we should read the whole thing first.
Paragraph 2. The Portola Valley Open Space Committee has followed Mid-Pen's plans for Hawthorns with steady interest by participating in the Hawthorns Ad Hoc Committee and discussing the project in our regular agendized meetings. In anticipation of the town's several upcoming meetings on Hawthorns, we offer the following input and recommendations. Number 1, we support Mid-Pen's goal of holistic integration of the Hawthorns. Further, we believe this requires integrated framing from the start rather than separate consideration of the unimproved and improved portions, or addressing parking separate from activities it will serve. Therefore, we recommend assembling information on integration of the property as a whole. An indication of the timeliness of this approach is Mid-Pen's accelerated planning for the historic complex's lower barn and its potential implications for the unimproved portion. Point 2, we support Mid-Pen's goal of ensuring safe access and recommend expanding the scope to consider safety for all. Mid-Pen is advancing 2 of the POG's parking options for town consideration. Each includes parking for 50 cars, a fire truck turnaround, and a toilet facility. They differ primarily in the location of ingress-egress. First, the ingress-egress option 10 via 4-way intersection at Alpine Road and Portola Roads. And secondly, ingress-egress option 9 via the existing driveway opposite Roberts Market. We recommend that these proposals address the nexus of safety issues at the intersection of Alpine Road and Portola Road fully and in a forward-thinking way. How would use of Alpine Trail by school children and hikers and use of Alpine Road by motorists and cyclists be affected? Has a thorough study of the Alpine Road corridor and points of contact been conducted and made public? Would the parking lot serve hikers, visitors to the historic complex? Both. And how was parking capacity determined? Point 3, we welcome and support the alignment of the Hawthorne's conservation easement and the town's municipal code and general plan in terms of restrictions on grading and tree removals. We recommend that each parking option address those restrictions by specifying the amount of cut and fill, the number of significant trees that would be removed, and likely hydraulic changes. More broadly, we would request a full explanation of how parking options 9 and 10 are consistent with the conservation easement. Question 4, or point 4, as part of an integrated assessment, we recommend that the town consider connectivity of Hawthorne's trails to town trails in terms of trail maintenance and town responsibilities, and seek input from Portola Valley Ranch. Point 5, we recommend a review of Assembly Bill 2091, sponsor was Grayson, regarding new options for opening Hawthorne's to go public. AB 2091 was enacted last month and allows park districts to forego CEQA if, in opening the park, public access is limited to pre-existing paved and natural surface roads, trails and pathways, and parking is limited to disturbed areas. We note that MidPen was a co-sponsor with East Bay Regional Park District of AB 2091. The Open Space Committee welcomes the opportunity to support the town in making future decisions based on a full picture of Hawthorne's, all while integrating the details that inform its parts. At this time, we believe it premature to consider evaluating either parking option 9 or 10. Respectfully, the Open Space Committee, signed by the individual members. So having read that, I'd like to go around the table. First of all, welcome, Terry. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to go around the table, you know, maybe starting with Nona and I wrote this together, and Nona was instrumentally helpful in making it sound as erudite as it does. There are lots of footnotes that I did not take time to read, but perhaps the viewers at home had a chance to read as I was going through it. There are references and things are adequately footnoted so that you can go to the citations to support all the facts that are included there. Going down the table, does anyone want to start with comments?
Sure, I'll start. I think it's a good letter, and I would support it as is.
Thank you, Carter.
I agree.
Thanks, Bev.
Let's make sure Carter gets to his cookout, and I agree. Yeah.
Well, this is getting to be too easy. Harry, what do you think? Sure.
Yeah, I can just make a comment. So we're set up to do real-time editing. So even if there are word changes or deletions, additions, anything, we can do it right here and now and get out of here quickly still.
And here's one thing, when we have
And my one comment is I really support the holistic approach, and Carter, I'm sure, would agree with that. We got to know what the whole project is now, and even if some parts of it are not built, say a trail or access to the barn, that sort of thing, but it's all got to be set in stone now. So that's important.
Thank you,
Holistic.
Gary. And I would just comment that your support of the integrative and holistic report approach is very much supported by Mid-Peninsula. They mention it numerous times, and in their 9 vision and goals call it out twice. So the good news is that we're aligned on that. There may be questions that people have apart from amendments. I would give Terry more time by going online to see if anyone there has a comment, but they're not appearing here. Well, it doesn't look like there are any, no hands raised, so we're good. It's, your screen's better at showing both. Maybe I'll call on Joe. I would like to unmute. Oh, what is it? I see a member of our audience. Lana, your hand is raised. If you would unmute yourself, we'd be happy to hear your comment.
Oh, thank you. I think the letter's very, very good. I commend the writers of it. I think it's well worded, and I think the holistic approach is excellent. So I'd like to comment on one aspect of this whole issue about the violation of the conservation easement with the plans for the parking lot. I am wondering if the Planning Commission and the Town Council should consider the following. I, for some time, have been concerned that Mid-Penn will not answer the question, why is this parking lot plan consistent with the easement? And all Mid-Penn has said, to my knowledge, is that it complies with Post, or Post approves it, or something like that. For the past 5 to 6 months, I've been communicating with Post. The particular person that I've been communicating with is Dylan Sonderman. He's the conservation easement manager. And Post, of course, is the entity that is responsible for enforcing the easement. And I've raised with Dylan the concerns many people have over Mid-Penn's violations of various terms of the easement. Recently, I've honed in my conversations by email with Dylan on the subject of the parking lot, since that seems to be the issue that has kind of risen to the top of concern, at least at this point of time. And 3 months ago, I pointed out to him that what Mid-Penn wants to do by building that parking lot in the unimproved portion violates a specific, very specific provision of the easement. And his response to me was that both Post and Mid-Penn together have had numerous ongoing conversations, and that he believes that this current and latest plan by Mid-Penn meets the requirement that the lot be around the perimeter of the improved portion. I followed that up with him and I said, please explain to me how this can be when the lot is clearly in the unimproved portion. And my responses from him were very, very vague, which concerned me a lot.
Did you say very, very what?
I'm sorry,
Vague?
I don't.
Vague.
They were vague and they were evasive. So I followed it up about a month ago with a very specific question. And I said, please explain to me why you conclude that the plan complies with the clear wording of the easement. He responded to me a couple of days ago. And again, it was an evasive response. He said, first of all, that Post does not discuss with any third parties the specifics of its discussions with the owner of the property, which would be MidPen. He also said it's at the property owners, MidPen's, discretion when and how they may choose to share any internal and private plans for their use of the property. That was also evasive. In other words, he didn't answer my question. So what I see happening is that Post, the entity that is the enforcing entity of the easement, refuses to say how MidPen's plans comply with the easement. And I'm saying they won't say that because they know that it doesn't. So where does this leave us? This leaves us with Post saying, I think, well, you have to go to MidPen because in their discretion they can talk to you. But then when we go to MidPen, all we get is, well, there's compliance because Post is comfortable with it. And meanwhile, neither Post nor MidPen wants to go on the record with saying just how they conclude that this plan complies with the easement. So what do we do about this? It's like one side Post is throwing the ball into MidPen's court, MidPen is throwing the ball into Post court, and we don't get an answer. So
May I suggest something
Mhm.
at this point?
Yes.
Thank you. I hear your point. I'm going to need to turn soon to our other committee member, our last committee member, to weigh in on the letter. You have probably a copy of the conservation easement, is that right, Lana?
I do, yes.
You do. On page 11, point 15, general provisions, item D is no third-party rights. If you read that, part of what they're saying is that this is a negotiation between grantor and grantee. And I just wanted to point out that the grantor is Mr. Frederick Wood's successor trustee, and the grantee would be Post. So you are asserting MidPen and Portola Valley would both have equal rights as a third party.
No.
The two parties who are who would be in conversation about how to interpret the conservation easement would be the successor trustee to Frederick Woods III and Post. So I just wanted to point that out for clarification. But the absence of third-party rights is, they're certainly accurate about that. I hear your point, and I think if you attend the November 6th Planning Commission meeting, you'll have an opportunity to listen as they ask questions that perhaps will reflect your interests. And if not, you'll have a chance to ask them as well.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your comments. If I could just have 30 seconds, I'll try to do it in 20 seconds. I'm wondering if that in communications from this committee, it would be advisable to somehow request that the Planning Commission and the Town Council ask specifically how the parking lot doesn't violate the easement and whether Post specifically approved it. And if so, who at Post gave the approval and how did Post explain away the violation? That's just the thought that I put out there for consideration. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And I perhaps when we post this letter online and you see it as a part of an agenda package to both those committees who will be meeting on the 30th of, Town Council will meet on the 30th of this month and Planning Commission on the 6th of November, you'll see that we do cover questions about the conservation easement under one of these points. And so we think that your questioning about the interpretation is very well taken. It's point number 3. Point number 3, yeah. Lana, that was Lana Norris. Yes. And with that, thank you very much for weighing in. And I also encourage you to write a letter to both Planning Commission and Town Council, because resident letters complement committee letters, and it's necessary that they hear all of our voices. Terry.
Betsy. I just want to echo my appreciation and admiration for the work that Nona and Betsy did in drafting this. I feel very comfortable signing it and appreciate what's articulated here. My only additional comment, which may not require any adjustment, is kind of with respect to the fourth clause. And I don't know to what extent it's significant or important, but for me, I've always been particularly interested in the notion that Hawthorne's, at least at one point, was positioned as being part of the Windy Hill open space.
Do you mind to put your mic a little closer? I'm getting what you say, but thank
sure.
You.
I've always been particularly interested in the notion that Hawthorne's has been positioned, and it may not be anymore, but as part of the Windy Hill open space of Mid-Penn. And that has made some of us, certainly made me, really focused on the positioning of it and its relationship to Portola Valley Ranch and Coal Mine Ridge Nature Preserve in between, and the impact on the trails and the trail use in between. And at least my personal experience, that as amazing a job as Mid-Penn does in maintaining, in particular, Windy Hill open space, which is a wonderful, wonderful asset. The monitoring of trail use, I've found very variable in terms of, bicycles, in terms of animals and whatnot. And my understanding is that the ranch and Coal Mine Ridge Nature Preserve have their own stipulations around appropriate trail maintenance and trail use. And I worry about the impact of additional traffic and compliance with those guidelines, given what I've seen in Windy Hill itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to be overly critical, because I'm a great admirer of the amazing resources that Mid-Penn broadly, including in Windy Hill, offer not just the Portola Valley community, but the larger community. But I have not been infrequently troubled by non-compliance of the use. And I would be worried for everybody, including the ranch and Coal Mine Ridge folks, about what would happen in their space as well.
And so, as a part of number 4, if you were to integrate the concern about compliance and the impact on trail use, it's a reasonable concern, because follow-up is expensive, and in this time of limited budgets, we often aren't able to follow up. It might be our wish and our hope, but we're all understaffed. So I understand your worry is a practical one. How would you recommend integrating that thought with what we have here?
So I've started kind of penciling in something here in real time, just to try and keep this rolling. So we could change it to, in terms of trail maintenance, town responsibilities, and compliance with trail use rules. Do we want to say specifically Coal Mine Ridge, or and seek input from Portola Valley Ranch? So really, this is just real-time editing for everyone, so
Yeah,
we can
no,
make
it's
it
great.
as efficient as
Fabulous.
possible.
Fabulous.
I would say that this complies with what you were looking for, Terry.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion, actually, to respond, to what Lana Norris was talking about, because I do think it provides an opportunity for us, to effectively ask a question. So I'd be adding a item 6 that would say something to the effect that it will be important for the town to carefully understand how MROSD's compliance with the conditions of approval of the conservation and usage improvement limits imposed by the conservation easement. Sure, it's not all quite there, but the reason that I'm that I think it's valuable is that
No, I can't wait.
I think it opens an opportunity to ask for the town to ask the question on our behalf through the ad hoc committee and the planning commission and the town council for what other flexibility there might be in the conservation easement. Because if there's flexibility that allows the parking lot, which I think most of us find that the conservation easement as it's written would be a violation, then there might be other opportunities for post to provide flexibility for use in the placement of improvements.
You're thinking of making this a separate point here?
That was mine, because I didn't really see how it related.
Yeah, Nona, if we make that a separate point, it would seem to link flow 3 more. Do you think if we just slid things down?
Should I put this
after the alignment with the conservation easement, let's just see, I'm not sure if we can, if we want to make it a separate point or add it to 3. Let's just see.
Okay.
It's very important point. It picks up on what Lana was saying, Carter, and I think independently, it's a very important point. Because I think right now that we're all in the dark about where there is flexibility, and if there's as much flexibility as there appears to be, then let's open up the conversation more broadly.
Okay, I need a little help finishing
I think
this
that's it.
sentence.
It would be important for the town to understand the compliance with the condition. I think
That's enough.
That's enough.
Okay. Carrie, you want to? Does that help? Can I make it larger? Pondering. Yeah. Okay. So that would be in addition to the other change.
And just because of you set up a kind of a pattern of speech, if we wanted to be consistent with the letter, we could also phrase that as a question, which is, does the town understand the compliance? That's a little bit cumbersome, but
yeah, I wasn't trying to make it a question.
You just put it out.
I put it out, in the issue for me is that one of the first things that I started to try to understand, about Hawthorne's, when they put out the RFP for the reuse, of the historic portions of the property, was the conservation easement. And many of the conditions of the conservation easement from the very beginning were very cumbersome, and for almost all natural, uses, it was difficult to, they were mostly non-starters, that, almost at every point, there was, something in the conservation easement that was, an impediment to natural use.
No question.
And the reason for, for the statement, it is important, that the town understand it, is to establish what the limits and what the guardrails are.
I agree with you. In fact, I think it's an important enough point that we make it a separate point. The other point stands on its own quite well. And this one, if we make it clean and simple and move it down to 4 and then slide everything else, I think it will get better attention and make more. Yeah, I prefer that as.
Okay, so now it's a separate point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but as a separate point, I think we need to say why it's important then. The importance is, to understand the guardrails under which, the improvements will be judged by, or can be judged by Post and by the town.
Understand the guardrails under which
the design would be judged by Post.
We all want common stability and understanding. Do you mean the design will be judged by Post or also by the town? We want to be on the same page, right?
Effectively, what would be great, is if, Post were a member, of the conversation instead of a third party, sitting behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz.
you could just leave off by Post.
Yeah,
just say,
I think so.
Judged.
I think so. Right.
Does that work?
Yes. Wordsmithing by committee is hard.
Bev, Gary, Terry, do any one of you have any thoughts about this edition or the earlier edition, Terry's suggestion?
Did number 3 would Terry's suggestion actually get added?
Yes, it did. Where did we surface that?
It's down here now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now it's now 6. How did it jump from 4
Well,
to 6?
it's actually 5, but
yeah. Okay.
It's
actually
actually hard to
I
get
was
the
gonna-
numbering right when I'm doing real time editing.
this one more.
but
Okay.
I promise
Okay.
I'll count.
Okay.
okay.
Is that sufficient, Terry? Okay.
So Terry, is this intended to, deal with the what I've heard and what I've read is a conflict with the trail along the edge of Portola Valley Ranch that
Sweet Springs.
Yeah, Sweet Springs Trail that is limited to equestrians at this point.
Yeah, I actually don't think of it just as relating to Sweet Springs. I also think of it in relation to all the trails that Sweet Springs is connected to, increased traffic on Alpine Trail, which goes right by the Coal Mine Ridge Preserve, of which there are 2 very significant entry points, at least 2. I'm trying to remember if it's Old Spanish and Toyon trails. both of which have their own unique use guidelines, and are both very popular. And I anticipate in many good ways, more people having access to, appropriate use. My worry is that what I was trying to communicate before, which is not anyone's fault, but that the actual use that I have seen in Windy Hill and actually in the reserve is not consistently compliant with the guidelines that the people responsible for those maintenance and whatnot have asked. And so I worry that more traffic, more parking, more visibility in Hawthorns, which is really part of Windy Hill, is going to generate more non-compliant use and more impact on trail maintenance and all the other things that come with that. And I just want to encourage us to, and the folks that are making these decisions to factor that into their planning. They are resources and assets that want to be used and should be used, but hopefully in a compliant way that makes it manageable for us to maintain and protect them going forward.
Super, beautifully said. Beautifully said. If there be no further amendments, is it necessary to read it again? Or we could, can I just say as amended?
As amended.
Oh, good. May I hear a motion to approve the letter as amended?
I move approval to approve the letter as amended.
Second. You got a second here.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Carter. So I call for a vote then. All approve?
Yeah,
Aye.
In
approved.
favor? Yeah. Yay. Motion passes. Fantastic work. Thank you, committee. That concludes our meeting tonight. We fulfilled our mission. Thank you.
Okay, so before everybody leaves, I'm just going to scroll through so you can see. I've saved it now as amended. And the changes are to, let's see, we added a new number 4. So this is, let's just take a second. Oh, I have a typo, so I'll change that. There we go. Okay, so that's number 4. And number 5 has the addition from Terry. So just read number 5. Okay, those are the 2 changes, and the numbering is now 1 through 6 rather than.
Way to go. Thank you.
Number.
Thank you,
Okay.
Nona, for real-time editing. Thanks, Carter. Good luck with your party tonight. Everybody, as you're taking off,
Thank you, guys.
Hit your mics off. Thanks so much. Farewell, audience. I don't think we had a hand in the air there.
Okay, so I'm going to
We're
stop
good.
sharing, and let's see, there's no